Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today is open lines where I hope that a lot of you would log into Telegram and chat with me to simply share your individual stories and eventually whatever else might come up. But I'm hoping you might call in to share your contact story, ET story, ghost, cryptid story, whichever you might have. So yeah, it's just basically just me hanging out online with you and just kind of creating a online live version of somewhat of a meeting, and especially since we can't see each other at meetings where I used to go all the time in San Luis, we would at least just give an opportunity for each person to talk one at a time to share whatever is new and exciting that everyone else might want to hear. So anyway, so welcome all of you. Welcome, Mr. Carol Tucky, Fab22. Welcome. Good to see you. Smoking and Joe. And so we'll see whoever else might be coming in later on. I'll check to check whoever else might be on Telegram, which for those who might be new, Telegram is how you can connect with me to talk to me directly on air, and simply download the app. In the description below, you will find a link to the UFO Hub group. Install the app, join the group, and you can join the voice chat that's going on right now. And you can chat with me. Don't forget to raise your hand, which means it tells me that you're not just in the voice chat to listen, because this is simultaneously being sent out to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and voice only over Telegram. So you can either listen, and if you want to talk, just simply raise your hand. So today, before I eventually get into talking to some of you, and before I get to about the experiment that I would like to talk about, the metaphysical experiment, I wanted to basically just mention a few things regarding some posts on the community tab that I had posted. So this mainly came about after my wife and I were talking about some things that I was needing, and as always, I go to her. I was like, "Hey, I need this stuff. Do you think we can get it?" Which specifically, it's been a while back, is this new computer. And so anyway, I had just, after we had that discussion, I was basically thinking or trying to figure out if I could potentially find some sponsors that would be interested enough that want to advertise and return, then make it a lot easier for me to get whatever I need to get, instead of just going to our own bank account and asking my wife about it. Now, of course, I've always done that. It's been 8+ years that we've been doing that. 7 years maybe, or no, more closer to 6 years that we've been doing that together, to where whatever is needed, whatever I need, we'll just make it happen. But I just wanted to say, if you like what UFO Hub offers, the different interviews, that will never stop. I will always continue draw wherever funds I can draw to make something happen. But if you feel so inclined and you like what UFO Hub offers, consider donating if you can. Or there's some of these like t-shirts and whatnot through Teespring. A lot of the designs and ideas and concepts are, some were designed by somebody else, but it was a concept I came up with. So I hope you find it intriguing enough to maybe get some of the merchandise, but it would help out to just me not constantly having to go to my wife. But if you don't want to, can't, whatever reason, I hope you at least consider liking the video and sharing it, at least through expansion. That way, it would just make it a whole lot easier for basically others to find out about UFO Hub. So anyway, let me see. My my person that usually helps me out with to make sure that everything is being streamed just fine and streaming correctly is sleeping on the job today, so I'm hoping that I come through all right for all of you, and I'm pretty sure she'll let me know here in a second. But so anyway, Star Brother, hello, welcome. So what I basically wanted to get into, and the metaphysical the metaphysical experiment that I was talking about was simply this. And this was something that I often think about, and it happens from time to time, that a lot of people that come to UFO Hub and want to know about my experiences, they want to know about the guest experiences, whoever I happen to interview at that time, they often they want to hear it. They find it interesting. They find it entertaining. And so a lot of times I find the way that I represent certain experiences that I've had, that if I believe that someone else can also have, I try to kind of create a roadmap or tell a story of how they can kind of get to that point. Well, all of that requires work. So if I talk about something and say meditation would be good to get to that point, to have this experience, some of them, they're like, no, okay, I tried, it didn't work, I fell asleep, and all kinds of excuses. Well, if I suggest some other things, such as psychedelics and whatnot, which I'm not condoning, I'm just saying that that's the process I took. It again requires work for others to do and actually go about the process to have that experience, to then gain that knowledge that a lot of us kind of take with us and then come back. So what got to me, or what hit me the other day, was I want to try to then, instead of showing you the map of how you can get there too, which a lot of people don't want to take, this other process also requires work. It's also something you're going to have to do. You can't get around of wanting to have an experience but not want to do anything for it. So I want to bring back some of that experience and what I've learned, and then apply that information that I learned there to how you can apply it here and now. So it's not so much a process of how you get there, but it's like, okay, I went there, I got the information. Now you still can have to do some work, but you might get the I guess a lot quicker to an understanding than it took me or others. So anyway, without digressing any further, let me get into what I had in mind. So one of the experiences was, and it happened to me every single time. It doesn't matter at which stage, at which point, it was always conveyed to me that everything in my life that I have experienced has been done for a very specific purpose, but specifically done for me. And so that every step of the way, every waking moment, every experience that we have is literally done for you to experience, for you to observe, to a lot of times unconsciously, but sometimes consciously take in. And those things that we do take in consciously, we're like, oh, this was synchronicity. Oh, this was coincidence, right? And so what I would suggest is basically I'm asking you for this experiment to at least dedicate one entire day. And maybe a weekend might work best, depends on how busy you get, or during the week, whatever works best for you. I don't know what your individual schedule is, but what I'm basically wanting you to do is that, let's say if you're taking this one day, and then if we want to be really adventurous, take it up to a whole week, to every single day from the moment you wake up, notice things around yourself. So I'm talking literally, let's say you might wake up in a certain position every day. Maybe for most people, it's just opening your eyes and staring up at the ceiling, right? Now, that might be a every morning thing for you, but notice if that happens on that particular day that you are wanting and consciously taking the steps forward to pay attention, if that happens to you again. And if it does, just observe it and notice if something else is different about it. And every step that you take, everywhere you go, let's say you might, something silly is going into the closet to pick up your socks first or underwear, and you've always done it the same way. And then one day you change it differently to where you pick up your underwear first and then socks, whatever it might be. I mean, I'm giving you every possible example, but the point is for you to take that information in, quiet literally, as if it was a stage, a play made for you. And so every conversation you might hear in passing, every random ad you might hear on that catches your attention, try to write things down. And this is the experiment that requires some work on your end. But what I'm basically asking you to, without fully needing to understand everything that happens, to give a context to it, write it down the best way you can, and however much time you have, because you might be driving and you're thinking about something, and then something happens that you observe or hear through a radio or whatever it may be. And so chronologically, simply write these steps down, and write them down from the very moment that you have awoken, moving forward to where it's time to just, okay, put the pen and paper down and go to sleep, or whatever, whether you're typing it up or not. And then then what I'm asking you is, let's say if you're doing this for one day, to then next day remember what you were feeling, what kind of challenges you were having, what difficulties you were having, what feelings didn't sit right with you, or even feelings that you were feeling happy about. It doesn't always have to be negative stuff. You can also analyze things like, wow, I'm freaking happy, But what I'm asking again is, look at your daily event and just read these things out to yourself, however long it might be. And then basically look at that as a story of what you are telling yourself back. And so that is in essence the gist of the experiment. So instead of you having these experiences to where you have to go and meditate and do all these other things, I'm sure that's what you still want, which is perfectly fine. But this will also get you on that track to where we'll take in some of the lessons, myself and many others. I'm sure this is not a new concept, but it's a very prevalent, very common thing that often people talk about, whether they have an out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, psychedelic trips, meditations, you name it. So simply then look at the story that you wrote out for yourself and then read it to yourself again. And you'll be amazed what messages would come through of what you had told yourself the day prior. And you can still, you don't necessarily have to wait to sleep on it and go next day, read it. Simply whenever you conclude your day, to just look at things and just see. And I think you'll be quite amazed what information you can glean from it and how much you actually are given without realizing it on an every single day basis. So I'm being dead serious when I tell you about this experiment. I don't mean this as a joke. I'm being quite literal. I also understand it requires a lot of work. Some of you might do it, some of you might not do it, but for the sake of helping out, for the sake of sharing information, and for I guess just giving more practical examples, as practical as it possibly can get, instead of just always leaving these new age concepts, in this airy-fairy cloud. It's like, oh, love and light, everything's going to be great. It's like, take practical steps towards what you can do to then physically have an experience that shows you that everything is an orchestration. Everything is a creation for you. It's a feedback loop. It's a mirror back to you about whatever it is that you're doing, feeling about, or whatever. So that's the experiment, either for a day, either for a week. And so if you're doing it for a week, it will be perfect until next Wednesday at 7 when we have open lines again. Or even if you do it for one day throughout any of that. Of those days, but I'd love to talk to you about it and hear from you and see what you've written. What is your story? What are you telling yourself? And so I'm truly hoping that some of you would do it and contact me back and just talk to me and share live on the air what you have what you have experienced. And it could be that you might find a solution to a problem within that process. It could be just something you might have felt about and you've gotten some message about that, whatever that might happen. Because however random things may appear to you, because this universe truly is this awe-inspiring place, there's always rhyme and reason. And so you just have to learn to be observant enough and quiet enough and getting that ego out of the way to just observe it in the purest way possible instead of sitting there and trying to say, well, what really means is this. It's like, no, just quite literally write down the words. You might be driving and you just, hear something, even if it's something like, new mattress, $9.99 or, whatever, not $99, $99 or whatever, no financing, whatever, write that down. It could be everything and anything, but it's the story later, reading through it, that will give you more insight. So, let me see here. Okay, so Linda, welcome. Tom, welcome. Ange, A-N-G-E, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, or N-G, welcome. Too Far Gone from Earth, welcome. Kathy, welcome. Claudine G, welcome. And Mr. Carl Tucky. I just wanted to see who else is in the chat room here. So let me also see if I have someone else. Yep, we have a few people on Telegram. So I guess if and when they want to talk to me, I'm sure they'll just raise their hand. But okay, Nick, welcome. Oh, and I don't know if Nick is the same Nick, but thank you very much I'm just calling Nick. I'm sure if he was watching, he should know it. I appreciate the donation given earlier. Much appreciated. And also to James and several others that had just bought some t-shirts off of the Teespring. Claudia Dixon, hello from Kentucky. Hello. All right. Well, so yeah, I'm just basically, if you guys have any questions that you would like to just put out there, please let me know. If you want to chat with me, please join Telegram. Otherwise, other than me suggesting this metaphysical experience that I just did, I pretty much I'm waiting for your guys' next step. So that's why I'm here for. Paul Crocker, welcome as well. Yeah, I had, something very interesting, just talking about, regarding just, this experience that I just experimented, I just suggested. I was thinking about, oh shoot, what was that? I was sitting there and I usually don't have necessarily time to watch like TV with ads. I would just either specifically, my wife and I would agree, okay, let's watch this movie, and we'll just watch the movie with no ads, or whatever on whatever channel that's possible, usually Netflix or something else. Well, this was something that was, I think, on like YouTube TV or something. So they occasionally have ads, and I'm not, that big of a fan of ads. That's why when I made the post in the community tab, basically, what was that about? Let me switch it here. So I posted this tab, and this is I'm asking pretty much everyone that subscribed to the channel, which is a big ask, to just give me their opinion through this vote, whether or not there would be 4 sponsors or no sponsors. And right now, 71 votes is not exactly enough for me to be like, okay, I'm going to go with that, because it's a very small representation of the full subscriber base. But I basically, in this long text that I've written out here, I explain and get into why I'm doing what I'm doing. So anyway, talking about, sponsors and ads. So I was sitting there, and I was just, generally, it was something I was contemplating about whether or not, because I have the different setups and all of that. There was some change I wanted to make to see if I can improve some things on the microphone connection to the computer and all this other things. Because right now I'm going through a different system that reaches the computer that streams out to you guys. And so I was just thinking that, and just at the same time, my thoughts just switched over to this ad, and this guy is walking straight towards the TV, and talking, and it goes, and something just really like talking about what I was mentioning to you to do during the experiment, but he just was looking at me as he's walking, and it says, like something along the lines like, a lot of you have a lot of things that they want to do, but they don't often have the time, right? But it's all gonna like work out. And then he went into the spiel of the ad, but that right there captured my attention, because that often is how I kind of talking about messages. When people always say, oh, I got this message, it's nothing really extraordinary. It's just that I trust that I'm going to get the information when I need to get it, and not to be afraid to follow up on it, instead of just saying, oh, this is crazy. If I tell people like, oh, I heard this here, and say this is a message to me, how embarrassing that would be if somebody thought of me that that's what I do throughout life. But I've learned that life is that mysterious. It could be literally, you walking and thinking about something, and you overhear a conversation that would literally just say a few words that would basically add to your conversation and give you those answers. So anyway, just wanted to kind of just give you a quick spiel about talking about synchronicity and how you could potentially be collecting that data. I'm not saying that every ad, but of course, even if you sat down and just watched every ad there is, if you just wrote it out and what it was covering, one after another, I promise you, you're going to not just, see messages of the ads, but actually things that are relevant to you of what's going on in your life. Okay, let's see here. Right. So Mr. Carol Tucky said, what I have learned from the other side is that the physical, it's nothing more than an illusion. When you are in spirit form, thought is reality. Yes, very much so. It's weird too. Because we're so used to a corporeal sense, sensing your body, and that's how you kind of gain this sense of self, because you sense your body, it's here, you're breathing, so that's you. And so it's really weird when you're having an out-of-body experience, whether it would be through an NDE or otherwise, to sense that consciousness, that existence still while you're out of body. It's really strange experience, but it's really, really something that I can only use those words, and like Mr. Carol Tucky did as well, that's, I don't know how else to describe it, other than you having that own experience. Okay, so Kathy, Orlando, Florida, watching from there, from Kentucky. Nick says, you're very welcome, Ednan. No, Nick, thank you. I really appreciate it. And Angie says, I think it's a great idea. Spotlights, welcome. It says, do you believe if we could use our whole brain, we could levitate? That's the part about one thing that I've definitely learned regarding the brain and what we generally consider the physical. Like, there's no original thought in your brain whatsoever. And what I mean by that is your eyes, your tastes, your hearing, the very brain, and every sense that you have about yourself it's simply a receptor and a translator of certain energies. And so one of the things I basically was conveyed was regarding this communication between your higher self and your body, and which was simply just, I guess, conveyed to me as a concept. But it not only did it make sense, but it was kind of weird to analyze yourself while it's being told to you, which was, so a lot of times we would, let's say, you go to a doctor and they hook up all those things to your head to measure certain brain wavelengths on your brain. And so they would say, well, if a person is seeing this imagery and they feel in love, then this sector of the brain turns on. So therefore, this has something to do with love, and the feeling, is originating from there. If another pleasure sensor, comes on in a different part of your brain, they always attribute it to the brain itself. Well, what I found is that it's actually not where this idea or thought originates. It's just that the energy from the higher self, as it's expressing itself through you, is that's the part that's basically being used to then express the higher energies from the higher message. So it's almost like a remote control car, and in a really simplified way, it's simply that part that turns on is not where the feeling originates. It originates from your higher self, but it's that part that physically gives you the sensation, that physically does a physical sense to then, let's say, give you the butterflies and make you feel all giddy and all of that stuff that's associated with love, right? And so that was really weird to learn and interesting, because every time we talk and have senses, we always just think it's all here, and this is the part that observes everything. So it takes things back in, and so you act from this point of view, but it's actually not what's happening. And even that this part of you is actually a very small percentage of who you actually are. It's way more vast than that. You're only I guess, again, I'm using this really overused analogy. It's almost like the analogy of you are, be very generous. You are the pinky, of the whole body that you are, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm just reading some comments. I apologize. I just realized I just stopped talking because I know people are watching. So I guess it's human nature to want to be engaged. Whale. I've totally forgot to switch my screen, so you were probably just watching me in that small window. Yeah, I've been distracted today. Today I was almost late. I was chatting it up with my good friend Nathan on Telegram, and we really got into whatever I was experiencing today. So it was a very very experienceful day. Let's just say that. So anyway, so I was talking to him, and he was in the middle of answering something. I was like, I gotta go. I'm going to be late. Okay, so. Mr. Carl Tucky says that's why it's hard for many to reach your higher self. Yeah, if you only see yourself as your body and not knowing that there is a larger driver there, it's you don't know what to look for. Well, glow up with Gaia. It says she's asking. Thought being reality on the other side, how does that relate to time? Well, what's really interesting is that time is really only created by quite literally looking at every moment and every certain aspect that exists in reality through billion times a second. And so you create that concept of time. It's something that Bashar often talked about. Now, what was very interesting is that during my near-death experience and some out-of-body experiences, what was really scary but I wouldn't say scary in like, oh my God, I'd never want to do this again. There was no sense of time. There was absolutely no sense of time. There was only ever and only ever was here and now. And so that was the weirdest thing. It's almost like I just got out of the best way I can describe it is, let's say you're watching TV, since I've been kind of using the TV example. And so you're watching TV and you're sitting in a chair. And so you're watching whatever, Mission Impossible, and you see there's time that will pass through there, and you're sitting there and watching them going through whatever difficult thing they're going through, and you're basically kind of emotionally kind of following the movie, or along, because that's why we watch movies. We want to be inspired or kind of get into the character's head. But time is very weird, for that TV. We understand that if it's sunset one day and then it's like middle of the day the next day, we understand and accept those rules that yes, that's how time works in this movie that we're observing, and it's nothing out of the ordinary for us. It's just something we accept as normal. But what's interesting is that as you're sitting there and you're watching this whole movie, in that movie, let's say it's a movie that maybe a year and weeks and years could go by, right? And so after the movie is done and over with, and you kind of break that connection and you just kind of come back to yourself, you just realize you just were sitting there for an hour and a half, however long your movies usually are. Although in this movie, years went by, for example. And so and you still sense that, wow, not much time has gone by at all. Well, think about it now from this world into this higher perspective, to where it's not just hours, but it's like absolutely no time whatsoever. Just zero. Just now, always now, just now. And only when you allow yourself to kind of, be born into this world and playing according to the rules that we all play, does it only then expand and work out. That's why you don't ever see things just immediately popping up, right? There's always this argument, and I'm not trying to make this political, but let's say talking about births, or things that generally need time to grow. Because of now, the second you realize something, you make it your reality. On the other side, it appears as an actual thing that you can interact with. But what's interesting here is that you might just see a small seed, right? There might be a tomato, might be, sperm, whatever. But it takes certain amount of time to see how that thing came to be. Whereas on the other side, you see the full concept of it, and it comes with the history and understanding and all that, because you as a creator, you give it the meaning, you give it the existence that it has. And so what's interesting is that, a lot of us here on Earth, we can, what I'm saying is, like, if we really truly need food, and let's say you're really out of food and the only thing you have is that one seed, you will look at that seed as a tomato that will grow up and offer you nourishment. Yes, you can't eat it at that instant, but that is a tomato that's going to give you what you need eventually later, right? And so, yes, of course, it's not how it exactly looks from completed grown tomato to a small seed, but because of that importance to you, you're not going to see a difference at any stage of its development until you can basically reap the fruits of that labor that you witness happening. And so same thing, a lot of times people would be like, if they want a baby, it's like it's a baby, it's a child that's in a womb that's going to be, a child, after 9 months at being born. But then if they don't want it, they'll have to use the excuse of like, well, it's just a cluster of cells, right? And so it all comes back to you of how, you choose to look at something, because you choose to look at it, but it's the reality of it doesn't necessarily change. Because if you're observing it, that means it was already created, and you're here to see its process, its creation, and the way it happens. And so now you can apply whatever else to it, that you want to make sense of it. But you had already decided that this thing will already exist. You already decided that this thing is a reality. All you're here for is just to observe it come to fruition. And so anyway, like I was saying, again, it's not, you know, regarding when spirit enters the body and all this other thing, that's a different story, you know, and maybe I can maybe get into that later. The point is, I'm not trying to make it political, blame a person for certain choices or whatever. I'm just telling you what I've seen, what I've experienced, you know, regarding creation itself. So I'm sorry if I went on a tangent. I'm trying to see if I actually answered the question here. Okay, yeah, it was Glow was asking how it relates to time, so I hope I explained that. So Kathy, thank you, Kathy. You actually, I did totally forgot about this. I figured because I'm not in a more like hectic state, like an interview where I have to pay attention to interview and at the same time read. Kathy Ashby put 3 stars before the question, so I really appreciate that because actually that tells me that's directly for me or for the guest. And so moving forward, if a lot of you or some of you do come back, I'd appreciate if you simply have direct questions for me or the guest be started out with the 3 little stars, because then it just makes it a lot easier on me. Because in the very beginning, before I figured out what to use, I noticed that the 3 stars are odd enough and weird enough to where it catches my eyes attention, and so I can see, oh, there's a question, instead of having to kind of sift through. I'm like, is this person talking to me or somebody else? Are they asking a question? No, this is just a statement. I don't have to try to figure all that out. But Kathy was saying, any thoughts of New Earth, Dolores Cannon? Well, yes. I mean, we're in it right now. Years ago, meaning only like maybe 10 years ago, you know, I don't mean it like, you know, decades and decades. I'm not that old, but years ago, which is lengthy period of time for me, was something I had always thought, because I was having all these different metaphysical spiritual experiences, that I thought the new earth would have directly something to do that is spiritual, that is going to be challenging or difficult for people to understand. So let's say certain concepts about oneness and the universe, and like we're talking about here on the show about time and all these other things. So I thought those would be concepts that then people would have to try to understand. And if they really don't, but still continue just going to their job and all this other stuff, that it would kind of create this different divide, to where you have these people that just understand where spiritually Earth is moving to, and then those that just kind of stick with baseball and football and every day-to-day life and not know any different. Not that that's bad, it's just that would be the split. And boy, was I wrong. You know, so it was actually this whole split we have in America, and that's been going on around the world, is very much this process of the split between people that basically want to stick with the establishment and saying, you listen to the establishment, this is what they're saying, you need to follow up these guidelines when it comes to vaccines and masks and all of that, and the general stance on the virus. And then you have the other side that basically is having the same information, but that's not being looked at. And so it's developing in this large way to where you know, having been in a lot of experiences that I've had, I've noticed and learned that being in a neutral point is the best way to look at something. Because if you're swayed one way or another, you start buying into it. So then the only way a side can perpetuate itself is by continuing being a side, right? And so you can go one way or another and only really just look at something only the way whatever side looks at. So being in this neutral point allows you to see the bigger picture and really consider both ideas and what's working and what's not working, right? And so that is the split that's been basically happening. And so you have people that are for vaccines and against vaccines, people are for mass and against mass, and all these other things. That is kind of going to be the larger and larger and larger divide, to where you would have different groups of people. And so I know, just looking at things like how things work out when you're in this neutral point of view, you see common sense works in a totally different way as opposed to if you pick a side. And usually, even though you can be on one side or another, common sense can still prevail, because when it's still looked from a neutral point of view, even though you might be on one side or another, that common sense stays because your intention is true, right? So it doesn't matter if you're, let's say, on left or right. If you're for truth, truth is still going to be truth, no matter what side you're on. And so I'm going to let you guys figure out of what works for you, what doesn't. I know where my wife and I stand as we're looking at things, as we're moving forward. And I don't often mention it, but when I do, for example, in this case, so for example, Dolores Cannon is it's basically my wife's grandma. And so, of course, her mindset was very much the way, Dolores's was, and all the things that she has been writing about and been teaching about and lecturing about. And so, of course, alike tracks alike. So we're very much on the same page about where things are going, where we need to be, and where, what best suits for us and our family, and where to live and which direction to go into. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, the new earth, we're in the process of it now. Next week, I'm going to talk to Brad Johnson again. He channels Adronis. And so I'll ask him more about that as well, because because it's very difficult to tell about time. How long is this going to take? And I've often heard him describe this as maybe another 10, 20 years. 10, 20 years for this to work out. And so I'll talk to him about it some more then. I hope some of you can log in, join the chat, ask some questions when it's time for Q&A. There will be an opportunity for that as well. Glow said, this is great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Carroll says, check out the book, My Big Toe, by Thomas W. Campbell, a good read. Glow says, I love that explanation. It's interesting getting into the idea of conception. For example, the 9 months for humans and 2 years for an elephant. Fab says, yeah, Kathy. Okay, you all just chatting there with each other. The Thing Hunter says, hey, Stargazer. If you're referring to me, hello. Okay. So yeah, I haven't, no one has joined the chat yet for Telegram. Nathan is actually there, but he's just a buddy of mine, so I don't know if he's interested to want to chat with me, just so it's not just me blabbling on and on. So if he's listening, I hope he joins in. Otherwise, if he doesn't, because he's a good friend of mine, I'm going to whoop his butt next time. Mr. Carol Tucky says, I'm working on the Telegram. Good, that's all right. You heard me here. Hey, Nathan, can you hear me? Oh, you have to unmute yourself to talk to me.
Oh, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yep, we can hear you. So what's going on?
Not much. You just said you're going to whoop my ass if I didn't chime in.
Oh, is that what it took? Just me,
Yeah.
dishing out some friendly threats?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, because I obviously I agree with everything you've been saying this video, so I really didn't have much to add. These are conversations we've talked about for years now, and yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, so I didn't really have much to add. I mean, yeah, there is like this whole new Earth coming, and I guess that's what we're seeing with this divide, because there is a serious divide. I had a I that first time around when they made us wear masks, I was like, all right, I put my head down. I was like, you know what? I put it on just to like get in the door, and then I'd pull it down, and then but this time I just am not even. I'm trying not to even like go to like a place if places are insistent on it. I try to offer some alternative information to maybe help them enlighten themselves, and I tried to do that the other day when I was out with my wife and a friend of ours, and I said, oh yeah, the mask, sure. I have some information that you might be interested. Before I even got finished offering the information, I had some woman just, verbally attack me, like, and you could just tell. I mean, from that, I could just see, oh my gosh, this divide it's getting bigger now. Like I don't find myself going out as often anymore as I used to, just because of this divide, I guess. And it's just too much of a pain in the butt. But when I do, and every now and then you encounter one of these people that are on the way other side, like the way they just want you to follow, they just want you to do what the TV says, shut up, put your head down. And I'm not, I mean, that's not me. I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm at the very least, I'm going to ask why first, like show me some good reasons why. But yeah, that divide is getting crazy. And you actually,
that's a part
before
like
you had to get
yeah,
on
go
this
ahead.
call. Oh, right before we ended our talk, before this call, I mean, before the show, you were explaining like what your answer to that, like what. So like, because I remember I made a comment. I said, wait, so is our purpose just to sort of hold the energy of love and light and liberty and all these good things that we want this new earth to have? And then you started going into, yeah, or you said it doesn't even have to be that intense. Just don't shop at places that are following the nonsense. You started going into an explanation, but then you had to cut the
Well,
conversation
no, what I
short
was
to get on
saying,
the show.
yeah, no, what I was saying, what you have to, this is not like I'm on this side, therefore I have to hate the other side, because there's something that that was very, very truly ingrained in me from when I was really learning and understanding these different concepts, is that just because you're winning, someone else doesn't have to lose. And that's a concept that a lot of us don't understand. We always think like, well, in order for me to win, there has to be a loser, you know? And the point is that whatever you are basically meshing with, whatever works with you, right? Whatever works for you, simply go with that process. And if it doesn't, then don't give it any extra energy than necessary. So, for example, when this whole thing happened, right, I'm talking about information not being allowed, right, because the earth really, truly is split in this way. There's a plethora of information that simply YouTube and other platforms just do not allow to be talked about. Professionals, doctors that entirely have a different point of view, which I think a lot of you will be surprised about this. They're not allowed to talk about this. And what's really interesting is that all these major platforms are just absolutely just squashing it every time they can. And so it's like almost this contradictory thing. It's like, listen to these doctors and listen to the science. Then you listen to these doctors, like, oh no, not these doctors. Listen to those doctors, right? And so this divide is not something new. If Nathan, I know you remember, and a lot of you might remember this as well, that have kind of had 9/11 as kind of like their awakening. There's an entire plethora of information about 9/11, and over 2.5 or so thousand of different architects that have said, hey, according to physics and everything we know about architecture, what had occurred for these certain buildings on this day cannot occur usually. And there's this like a huge, they call it, everyone else label them as conspiracy theories, but all they are is simply people that in their profession for what they've learned, what they've studied, is that's how they see it and analyze it. But they've been demonized and put down and squashed and not allowed to speak about this. So, that was kind of like, your beginning of this divide of just growing longer, longer, and longer, because there's an entire population out there that there's literally I don't know which one is sub, which one is, they're all kind of on their own same level. You can have like two neighbors that literally are thinking and following two different narratives and storylines, and so the important part is to just simply go to the places that you want to go, and if they don't mesh with you, or they don't agree with you and are being rude in such ways, it's like, I have no problem. I'll go take my money, go somewhere else and spend it there instead. You don't have to necessarily be confrontational with them, but you invest your energy in what is it that you want instead of what you don't want. So instead of fighting somebody and arguing with them about, well, did you look at this study about masks? Did you see how many people actually died from the vaccines? All this other stuff that's out there that's not allowed to look at. Instead of getting into arguments with them, it's like, I understand. You have yourself a good day. Take care. And so that's always been my mindset, because I'm not impervious to getting emotional about some things. But I've often mentioned on the show, I've always had then, this tool set that I don't have an excuse anymore to just continue being pissed for days and weeks on end. I've had these experiences and these tools that I can go back and look at and say, okay, this is what I can use to now self-analyze and see, okay, why am I feeling like this? Why is this coming up? Did I maybe not consider something of what I said or what I heard? Is that truly what I heard, or is there something else? So, you work that out, and once you work it out, you're done. You're done. You know where you stand, and you move forward solidly. And so, and so it doesn't matter what side you're on. You just have to just move forward in what best represents you, and just accept whatever might come. I mean, I've lost friends, not to do actual COVID, but through the arguments about COVID, so we're not friends anymore, and I just had to let that go, and I don't know how they feel about it, but I know that I'm just like, we're good. I don't have to hate you. I don't have to, whatever, come up with some kind of story to perpetually go on and on and on about hating your guts. It's just like, I understand where you stand. I don't, I try to explain where I'm coming from. If you don't want to hear it, I understand. And so anyway, that's what I said it differently while you and I were talking. I said it in a lot shorter ways, but it's kind of the gist of it. Wouldn't you agree?
I do. So you're saying so a lot of people have always said you vote with your dollars, and you can also look
it's
at
energy.
money as energy. Yeah, that's right. That's what I was just going to say. So you just got to put your energy towards, or your vote towards, the behavior of the new world that you agree with, the new world that you want, and retract your energy or your dollars from these sorts of activities and behaviors of people that are supporting the old world. I have to point out a couple examples now. You made me think of. There's a couple places around here that I used to frequent. Some their establishments are empty all the time, and that's because they're mask Nazis. They're hardcore. They're checking your temperature when you walk in the door. They're empty. They're failing. And several of them have closed their doors permanently. The ones that have stood up against these arbitrary mandates and have they're thriving. They've had their best years. I've talked to them. It's like, this is our best year. And the reason is because they took a stand, and they were, and I've talked to the owners. I do IT, so I work for these different businesses and stuff. And basically they said, that was it. They knew from the beginning, as most of us did, this is political. This is, yes, there's definitely something going wrong out there. There's definitely people getting sick and stuff, but as Kissinger said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what these people believe in wholeheartedly, to the point where they create crises. And so
well, it's a different, this is just it. It's a different mindset, and so it's about a lot of people when they get angry, right? They get angry because they feel like their information is maybe being attacked. They feel angry because, maybe they don't feel as secure and confident about what they're talking about. And if somebody is approaching what they think they know in a different way that could make them start doubting themselves, they sometimes want to hold on to whatever that is, right? And so they lash out. They lash out at you questioning me too much, and blah, blah, blah. And it usually, if you can't attack the facts, or if you can't share facts anymore, you attack the character. That's kind of like the basic rule of any kind of, debate, right? And so the second you really attack the person, you've lost the debate. And so that's I think that's the major part, is that many people, they buy into things too much, and so they don't do enough of that analysis. I was like, why am I really holding onto this, right? Because you can sometimes tell when somebody's belief systems are being challenged. You can just kind of see it in their eyes, like they're panicking, like, I'm holding on to this and I want to hold on to it for whatever reason. I don't understand, but I'm holding on to it, and the more you push and push and push, they basically then, either are physical back with you because you finally push them over that edge, or they just kind of, lose it and just become very verbally abusive, but the either case is that it's very important to just really and truly look at all the information. Just whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Even if we're freaking talking about Pokemon cards, right? And you're into Pokemon, and this person is like, no, this Pokemon creature does this, and this is their power and toughness and all this other stuff. And they're like, yeah, but I don't, the point is just educate yourself in the best way you can. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and see, like, do they have a standing? Where are they coming from? And so it's easy then to see, what their agenda is. It just kind of cuts through all that. The second you know a fact, the truth, you know exactly if they were coming from a good place or if they were coming from a manipulative place. Or if they're coming from a weak place because they don't have any other choice and they just think the only way to perpetuate everything is through manipulation and hope that other people don't really look past of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. So you turned me
hold on
on to
one second. So
disclose.tv.
just real quick. So Mr. Carroll, if you're listening, that's great. But if you also want to talk, just tap that little person that raised their hands that tells me that you actually want to talk to me. Otherwise, just welcome to the chat room and listen away. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say, so you turned me on to disclose.tv a month ago or so, and I've been keeping up with that to kind of stay current. And so I get looking at these updates, these news posts that they say, and it's like, oh my gosh. And immediately, sometimes I read something, my blood starts to boil, and I think, well, we got to fight for our rights. We got to fight this, But I think in reality, the fight's already done. There is no fight. There's no reason to fight. Like, now we just have to choose which Earth we want to go to. What do you think about that?
Well, regarding, to stay there, because there's a big difference between staying informed, and feeling like you have to do something about that, because that's what I'm talking about. First, if you feel like you have to fight, it's like, what do you feel insecure about? Ask yourself that. If you feel like you need to fight it, what is it that you're insecure about that brings up that emotion? Because if you truly believe that everything will work out the way it needs to work out, not saying that you now go sit back and, sip on a martini and whatever. I mean, if that's what you want to do, great. But in your life, like I was mentioning, and, let's say you decide which businesses you support and which ones you don't. You decide which friends you want to hang out with, which ones you don't. So in that same sense, if there's something that a piece of information comes your way, stay informed, but then see, okay, can I do something about this immediately? If this is a legislative problem, am I a senator that can do something about this? No. Okay, well then, am I, is there a way to get a hold of my senator? Well, yes, there is. Well, then, can I write to them? Can I call them? Yes, I can. Okay, well, that's an action you can take. If you truly strongly feel about that, you let them know as representatives to then go and do parts that's their job to do. Otherwise, you just continue living your life in the way you want to live it. Or if you really, 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 really feel strongly about this, then run for Senate and make this change yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So what I'm saying is like you can't make every fight your fight. It's like it just tells you like when you see something that doesn't mesh with you, think of it as that there's something in this information that doesn't sit well with you, right? That's not who you are. That's not what you want. And so to be like Basharov just said, it's like there's nothing wrong, like even like the first whatever, it was just a general term or general number given. But the first 10, 15 seconds, that you have that blood boiling, as you said, it just tells you like this is not who you are, right? And so that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then if that continues, and continues festering and going the direction that it goes, now it's, becoming, a choice. It's becoming a thing that now you have to look at. It's like, why do you continue now to judge it? You're choosing not to look at it and you're judging it. And so now you have to look at why are you judging it, right? What exactly about that is it that really drives you nuts and keeps on driving you nuts that you can't do anything about? But just because you get initially angry, that's okay. It's just like, I really don't agree with this. It's like Constitution is the way to go. Okay, there you go. I know the answer. You move on. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think my takeaway is that I just want to put my energy, whether it be my dollars or my support or whatever, put my energy towards this new world that Dolores Cannon was always talking about in her books. And I feel like it is. It's like kind of the two worlds are ripping apart. And I just want to, vote with my dollars, get on that right side of that, get on the side of the fence that I want to be on. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong. Some people that the old world is absolutely the right place for them.
Right.
But I'm ready to evolve. Move on.
Well, if we're already, because I often say people, if I was truly awake, I wouldn't be here, because then I would have moved on. I've learned what I need to learn, but I'm not. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. All I did is just simply do homework and homework in the sense of a lot of soul searching. A lot of basically living, like I've mentioned before, living in the woods by yourself and reliving the events of whatever just occurred, whether it was an out-of-body experience, a meditation, a psychedelic trip, whatever I learned on it, coming back and then just work on it, look at it, and why this happened, what does this mean, and then keep getting answers back, and then kind of in a way, in a really healthy way, allowing yourself to go crazy. Because in a funny way, like that saying goes, if you truly want, what's it say? It said, I talked like something along the lines like, I talked to myself because I want an expert opinion, and so that's has so much truth to that, because you're starting out with the most simple concept, which is why. So whatever you might have, whatever issues, whatever difficulties you have, the first step in really looking at every belief system you have is just why. Well, because of this. Why? And sooner or later, that now gives you enough understanding, to then that why change it into another process, whatever that process may be for you. And so, again, all of this stuff, like I was mentioning with the metaphysical experiment that I was suggesting for people to do, and I hope they do and call in for next week. But, it always requires work. It never, takes you out of the equation, because you are the driving force behind, all your sorrows, happiness, luck, and everything in your life. If you weren't experiencing it, basically meaning if you weren't creating it for yourself in the first place, you wouldn't be experiencing. You would be having a totally different experience. And believe me, there's spiritual form and general. It's like, it's really weird. It's just something that, I don't know, I guess once eventually all of us move on and have lived out the life, on this planet and are old and eventually pass on, I think we'll get more of a bigger picture, but what else there is out there, but the physical world it's not letting you off the hook. You're here and you're here for a reason, and it's up to you to figure out what it is. You can spend an entire lifetime searching it, or you might find it tomorrow, but it's the process of never giving up, to always moving forward, always looking, that will build that experience, will build your path, and make everything else clearer, at the end of the day. Because even, I noticed that when I had my near-death experience, it was basically conveyed to me that even if your entire life you've been in this difficult, challenging life, and it's been just absolutely, dreadful, and literally 2 breaths before your death, on one breath you will come to a new understanding, a new realization, and the second breath you take out and you pass away, the life would have been worth it, because it's on the other side. Time doesn't exist, the sorrow doesn't exist, this hardship doesn't exist, and it's such a love, and it's such a love that I have often, when I've given talks, I often described it. It is so powerful, so overwhelming, that I could literally live 1,000 lifetimes as a slave in the most horrible conditions, and I will be okay with that, knowing to the kind of love that I'll be eventually coming back to. That whatever experience I will have there, the love is way more overwhelming than any of the horrible experiences that I will have and go through. So
Well,
anyway,
I
let
think you
me.
just hit the nail right on the head again. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just looking at Mr. Carol. I don't know if you heard me the first time, but I just want to repeat it again because maybe he might be messing around with the settings. Because he was saying in the chat that he's working on his Telegram. So I don't know if he just wanted to listen. But if he did want to talk, I just want to remind him, please make sure to tap that little person that raises his hand, so I know you want to talk to me, and then you'll be in my queue. Okay, I'm sorry, Nathan. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying, that's it right there. So as we're all, because these are just such uncertain times. So I think all these principles of how to live a good life are all the more important right now. Like, move forward confidently in the direction of your dreams, have that energy of positivity. And like you said, direct your energy in the right way, the way towards people, towards activities, towards energy, things that we want to see in this new world. So,
well, a lot of times, we're such a tribal group that many of us, we always want, we want the entire team behind us, right? If you believe something, you want to be able to turn to a group. It says, ain't that right? Don't you agree with what I'm saying? And they'll be like, yeah. And then you feel better about yourself because you said something, they agreed. Oh, I must be right, And so a lot of us kind of have grown up like that through peer pressure as kids, and moving forward, it kind of sticks with us. And we don't realize that that's not exactly the best way to judge about what you want and what you don't want. It really takes this rare moment for you to just kind of not cut off entirely from your life, but just cut all that, those distraction on the outside, just cut them off and just go within. It's like, do I really feel this way? Do I really want that? And so that's, it's almost like like we're almost born with a challenge because we're very social creatures. So we automatically assume that whatever our siblings, our people that are within our, with our immediate group, that whatever they think, if they agree with us, that's a good barometer to measure, our success. That's why a lot of times, we always look at success of what, let's say, college, right? That was a personal of mine. I was a personal challenge and realization of mine. So everyone always keeps talking about college, and they're like, you have to go to college. If you go to college, that's people are going to know you finish college, you can complete something in 4 years, and all that reasoning to go to college. And I'm not trying to talk anyone out of wanting to go to college, but just in my own personal experience, I went to college, paid all this money to basically graduate with a degree in computer science and have a certificate in web development and a minor in German. And so, I got the certificate, and I'm just like, I paid all this money for this piece of paper, and because I graduated in 2006, and right around 2008, we had a huge crash. And what was interesting is that before 2008, everything was about, where did you go to school? How well educated are you? And then, of course, whatever experience you could tag onto that, that's a really good chance to get a great job. After 2008, there were so many people that were cutting corners that it almost didn't matter whether you had a degree or not. If you were simply just, some random guy that had the skill to do the job, you could work at these largest companies, either maintaining their service or designing the website or programming or whatever. And so it really blew away that whole concept of college because, now it didn't matter who did what. If you could do the job, there were so many corners being cut. And I saw that personally in my life because St. Louis is not exactly a small town. And so it was, because they have like, I think, what, 2 million people, like the actual, St. Louis city and county, I kind of consider that as one, although
Greater
don't tell them
metropolitan
that.
area is almost, it's like 2.8. At the greater
2.8.
metropolitan
Okay.
area, I think.
Okay, 2.8 then. Well, anyway, but that's a lot of people. And so now it was whoever could do the job for the cheapest amount. And so now if you had an education, that meant they have to pay you more. And with this uncertainty of the crash, it's like, we need the job done, but can we pay less? And so it was basically like having to cut back on how much you're willing to earn. If you're competing for a job, and so like, okay, well, you can pay me less over the other person because at least I'll have a job, and that would make a difference in my life. So anyway, so talking about changing a mindset about what college meant, and not only that, I felt kind of not betrayed, but let down because computers have been my passion since I was 14. So I learned about computers very early. It's like just nerding out, whatever I could learn, just looking through settings and figuring things out, And so before I got to college, I already pretty much knew 80%, maybe even 90% of all that I needed to know. So like things were a lot easier. It's like, okay, we're doing database. Great. There you go. I made a database, set up SQL, whatever, whatever. They like design a website, like, okay, already been designing websites for like, 5 years. So there you go. It was so easy, and all the processes or whatever, the like programming, it was kind of boring for me, but, I did what I just had to do, pass the classes. The point was, there was just very few things that I was really unfamiliar with that I needed to learn. But I gave him all this money, all this money that I worked for because I worked while I was going to college. So got as many grants as I could possibly get. And the rest of the money was either taken as loans or already working to start paying it down before I graduated. And so anyway, I got this paper. Everything was great. And then I was like, ugh. Now it's like it all was every man for himself, whether you have a degree or not, didn't matter. And so I don't know if things are the same because I've been kind of out of that rat race of corporate world and hunting for a job for quite a while. So I don't know if they went back to looking at colleges and prestige and all of that. But once they kind of dropped their standards, I was like, oh, we can still get everything we need to get done for less. Why not? Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, Nathan, I was just looking. I don't know if you also looking online. I'm just reading some of the comments, but was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think that about covers it.
Right.
Like, things are getting kind of scary right now, but they really don't have to be, because actually I started reading and doing a Course in Miracles, which has been very helpful for me. I don't know. I mean, that's a very popular piece of literature that's been around forever. Supposedly it's something that was like a channeled entity, and the entity is Jesus. So kind of cool stuff. But if we're to go by that, this is all just an illusion anyway. So there's really no reason to be afraid. You're hanging out with God. You decide to take a nap and dream up this world, and really nothing ever really happened that's wrong or bad or anything. And he's just waiting for you to wake up. So.
Well,
so
yeah,
I think, but like you said, we're here. We have this. Obviously, we're still here. We haven't zapped out of here or been beamed up anywhere. So that means we still have some lessons to learn as a human body. So, and I honestly, I kind of, just being like a kind of a sci-fi buff, I want to see where this goes. See where like I want to see this new world. I want to, see where this. Because if it really is just all done already, then we don't get to finish the story at least. Let's
Right.
evolve and see what this next world, this next Earth looks like, and probably be pretty cool. And
You
especially
know,
if it's the people like you and me and all your listeners and everybody like that. If it's full of those type of people, hell yeah, I want to go there. That'll be fun.
right. Well, honestly, after a while, so for example, like you won't believe this, but my wife and I, maybe in the whole time we've been together since 2015, we might have maybe discussed 5 paragraphs of actual like spiritual things, and that's it. Because it's so weird, like when you both are on the same understanding about certain things in life, you don't ever bring things up. You don't ever, really in this, like, let me explain to you a concept. We just live the way we want to live, and moving forward the way we want to move forward, without constantly telling each other and reminding each other. It's like, well, now you remember you attracted this. Now, and all of this is, it just simply doesn't come up. What we often discuss is about, different recipes and food and, all the stuff. Or, if we like to sometimes, or quite often, watch Gordon Ramsay, and she actually kind of turned me on to it, because I never really, all I've ever seen, like, just in short, like, why in the world is the guy screaming, cussing all the time? Now, I'm no angel, like, cussing is like my second language, as you know, Nathan, but I'm trying real hard not to be like that on the show. But again, for a show, I was really confused why they would have that. But anyway, so I never really got to look into it, and so she was watching, and I was like, okay, I want to watch it with you, and it really got me drawn into it. And she just told me, she's like, I don't know, maybe I love watching it because he's very much like you, because it's like, I just cut through the bullshit. It's just like, stop with the whole story you got going on. You just, trying to make yourself masquerading your true intent with something else. Let's just cut through to the chase and, get on with it. And so it's often, just kind of like reminded that of what he's done, reminded her of me, and I was, just jokingly saying, I was like, you're not hitting on Gordon Ramsay here, are you? And so anyway, so the whole point is that we don't ever discuss it. We just talk about this, whatever is normal day every day. So I think it would be very, very very back to normal, how we used to remember it, when you sort of always are preaching to the choir. You don't have to talk to the other person and tell them about anything, because they're already there. That's why they're around you.
Right.
They already think like you think most of the time. So you don't have to, try to convey. Because you remember, like, what was that, 15 years ago, maybe? Would you say now? When it was like you, me, and Nate and Rick, and we were all just like, like, oh, wow, did you learn about, this concept? And, when we're having our different psychedelic experiences. Oh, that also reminds me, for those watching. So Nathan, myself, and Rick, we tried a live show, didn't work out, but I had recorded it. It's edited and it's online now. It's called, under the YouTube channel, you can find it under psychedelic experiences. And it's basically just us three talking and sharing about all the psychedelic experiences we've had. And I don't know how long the show goes, but for those that are interested, check out the video. It's online on the channel as well. Which reminds me, I meant to ask you earlier, Nathan, do you want to, I don't know if you would be interested in, but now since you and Rick will be visiting me soon, do you want to not necessarily do a live show, but get together and do another recording and continue the conversation?
Sure. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. If
there were
it's
several
something,
things that I really thought we should have touched on or talked about, but we just didn't get to. So yeah,
well, let's do that. Let's do that. We'll just record it. We don't have to mess around with it going live. Because in order for me to do that live, I have to tend to the stream here, make sure everything's running while I'm also shifting between the two different camera angles, mine and the opposite. And so it just is extra work for me, and it doesn't allow for much fun. But if y'all here, I can just hit record, just sit down and pay attention and actually have a conversation.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
We'll do it. So that's,
yeah, just remind Rick of that a bit before you see him, so that he's not blindsided by it. It's like, I just thought I was coming to visit.
No, we'll do. I'm sure he'll be really excited about it too. Yeah, so that's the weekend of the 4th.
Right. Okay. Let me just look through some of the chats here. So Glow Up said, do you think the new Earth has to do with Earth beings realizing the divine plan, aka the synchronicities you mentioned before? Well, it's definitely plays into that. It's there is a divine plan, but you're also the creator of it. You're choosing the steps you're wanting to go into. What was interesting is that your oversoul really, not in a cold way, but in a very experiential way. It just stays as, just simply neutral, and it's like it wants to simply just have this experience, whatever this particular dimension has to offer. So it doesn't care if it has an experience of being someone that gets murdered in a very gruesome way and then passes on. The experience is the experience, because it's kind of no different than when we play games. In that game, we want to achieve it. It's about the fun, about the experience. But if we die, we just go, and then we retry again. Now, since we're very physical beings, it's very difficult for us to go, that's okay, I'll just die. It's a very scary experience, very something that we don't do. Otherwise, we'll all be appearing and disappearing off and on this planet all over the place all the time. But what I was going to say was, from the spiritual side of things, it's this is where the concept of karma comes around, not to where it's something that has to be done, but from the spiritual point of view, from spirit itself, in order to be a well-versed experience, to really see all the sides and aspects to it, it chooses to experience, let's say, being murdered and a murderer, or loving and being loved, and all of those aspects, because then you see the fuller, bigger picture. And that's what really matters to the soul. How we go about that process, it's really just up to the character that we all are. So in my case, it's Adnan. In your case, it'll be whatever your actual name is, Glow Up with Gaia. It's simply, you just kind of, with this limited understanding, with this limited way of perception and perceiving, you're like, okay, well, I'll go eat now, and I'm going to sleep, and I'm going to work the next day. And you just keep experiencing it, not realizing you really are put in this bigger play. Hence the metaphysical experience I mentioned earlier. So let's see. Claudia says, Adnan, have you ever had any of the Seth books by Jane Roberts? I know of Seth, but no, I have not. I don't have any, or have I read any? Fab 22 says, any news from Sherry W? So I'm assuming Sherry Wild. She seemed a bit off colors because virus, low energy, reptilian mentioned. Actually, I talked to her, I think 2 days after. I'm trying to recall. And we just, had a conversation about just, I wish sometimes the conversations that I have with a lot of people, that the others can have it in the same sense that I'm willing to have it. Because I think all of you would find it a lot more interesting to just really say what you think, what's on your mind, because because of fear of judgment, or of whatever reason, or some kind of backlash. It's the way we usually speak when we're off camera, off mic, is totally different than what it is now, and I've experienced it with everybody, and so I really wish that one of these days I could meet someone that is someone that you all know well, or is a well-known person, I should say, to just really let loose. But I guess everyone has their reasons to be the way they are when they're in public. Paul Crocker says, 40 years ago, I was driving on levited roadway over water at a smooth 120 miles per hour when the strong thought said, release the accelerator. Instantly, I released, and in 5 seconds, rear tire blew. Yeah, you get you get these feelings, sometimes. Like when I was in St. Louis, and I've told the story before, I was I would really not want to be at the job that I'm at. So anytime I go to lunch, I try to take my time to always just kind of be able to be like, oh, okay, well, it took a bit longer at lunch than I should have, or whatever, just to use it as an excuse. Well, one of these days, I've really spent quite a long time, so I was trying to hurry through all the downtown intersections to get to the building where I was working. And so I've been kind of like, every time it turns green, I'll go and then it stops again, and then go and it stops because of the blocks of every city and the way it's designed. Well, I had very much that sense of just go, let's get going, let's be in a hurry. Well, I stopped at this one particular red light, and I had that feeling just like to go. And then it turned green, and there's just something in me that just would not press on the gas and would not go. I was just staring at it. I'm like, it's green, dumbass, go, And so I finally, when I was just like kind of shook myself out of it, like, this is ridiculous. Why did I stop? I was about to hit the gas pedal when a car, I want to say at least like 70, 80 miles per hour, just drove across. So if I left when I thought I needed to leave, once it turned green, I would have been exactly at that intersection for just full on, T-bone accident. And, it's one of these things where it's just like, that was really weird and strange. It kind of gave me chills, but, it was one of thousands of different experiences that I've had throughout my life that I just kind of reflect back on and just take it in that, it was something that told me. I followed it. And oftentimes, whenever you have these feelings, do follow them, because never have I experienced for it to ever guide me the wrong way. Okay, any more questions that I can see here? Okay, so a lot of people seem to be just chatting with each other. Okay, next question is Edward Sosa is asking, are aliens demons? What is a demon? We must ask this question. When it comes to my different experiences, I've always ever experienced everything as this oneness. There's no outside thing that is a threat to you, an outside to the being that you are. There's only one energy here. The only difference is that energy experiences itself in this infinitesimal way that truly is infinite in all these ways that it can possibly be. It is. And all those moments exist in that one single frozen frame of the now. And so all these things that we perceive as other people, that we perceive as other things, beings, demons, angels, are literally different aspects of that one consciousness, just simply like interacting with itself. Basically, like you talking to yourself. And that's the weirdest part that is hard to grab that concept, So when we're talking about demons and these different aliens, all you're in essence are doing is getting in touch with this other side of yourself, and it can be scary because it expresses itself in different ways, and it can be in ways to where, like we already experienced on this planet, to where this other side of you is that different and that disconnected from understanding who and what it is, that it thinks that you're a threat that needs killed, and hence wars and all these other things. So when it comes to these concepts that we're talking about, demons and angels and all that, I don't doubt that it exists in one form or another, because it's often, as Bashar has mentioned too, if you can imagine it, it exists, because existence has only one property, which is non-existence. And so if you can imagine it, it exists in some form, in some way, at a certain level. So I don't doubt that there is such a thing as demons and all that. I just never personally experienced it. I've always ever looked at it as as this otherworldly and such a vast different aspect of myself. Because there were experiences where I was laying there, and this was just before any of this crazy stuff was happening in my life, and this is when I was still, the religion didn't have a stronghold on me, but I was, still kind of like had only it to reference back to for any kind of answers. And so I was laying there, and I just, had this paralysis where I couldn't move, and I just heard this like voice, just in this really echoey, boomy way. And it seemed like it was right here, just making these noises. And which, of course, with addition to the paralysis, it just scared the shit out of me, And so I immediately, I don't know, it just stems back from my independence and my way of the way I look at things. I just, basically had I just got mad and just did everything I could to get moving and move away from it. And so finally, once I kind of broke free from that, I got up, because I was actually up. It wasn't like sleep paralysis like people say, where you're awake but your body's still sleeping and so you can't move it. It was quite like an actual, I couldn't move. Well, see, the thing was later also, if I just stayed at that same mindset, I would have been like, yeah, that there's demons, there's things out there, and I would have said that and stuck to that. But because the way I've always approached things, I kept looking deeper and trying to figure out what that truly was, only to later figure out that because of my vibration at that time, whatever was happening, the only way that I was translating it was in this weird, disturbing way, to where I can only perceive it as something like demons. Because before that, I only had really religion to base my examples on. So in religion, there's the good and bad, and there's evil and all these other things. So I only had that filter. So I could only say, well, this was, feeling dark. It was weird. Therefore, it has to be a demon or the devil, And so when I had more of my experiences many, many years later, I understood that that's what was going on. It was simply the vibration. I was filtering it differently to where it sounded weird and jarbled and all that other stuff. Lin says, how do you feel about Ascension? Well, we all are in this ascension process. Sometimes, I think that's also a very, I don't want to say misunderstood concept, because that truly is a subjective experience when it comes to ascension. But ascension doesn't necessarily mean that you just keep working at it to where one day you just disappear from this planet. Your body's nowhere to be found, because there's nothing you left behind, because you just ascended and the energy just transformed, right? Ascension is part of just a simple life as well, living and dying. It's the overall collection of all these experiences that add to the soul, that said, okay, I've had enough of experiences in this dimension or this way, I'll move on to something else. That is also an ascension process, and not just ascension in the way we think ascension has to occur. or at least I should say, most of the information that I did read and the way people have described it was the example I gave first. And I'm saying is that that's not the only way from my personal experience. Nick says, comment, Nathan and Rick's interview with Psychedelic was extremely interesting to me. A friend had just explained its benefits, then came to your interview. Perfect timing, synchronicity. Yeah, that's how things work. I mean, whatever is more prevalent in your understanding, whatever is more whatever you're interested in, whatever you're working on, the existence, and some people call it universe, has a way of just giving you more of that, and especially becomes more prevalent and apparent when you're more open to it, instead of thinking it only has to come through a certain certain process. Okay. All right. I think I caught up with all the questions. Others are just comments. Let me see here. Nathan, I'm sorry I had you muted, but you are muted now. What's up?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, for the questioner about are extraterrestrials demons, there's a couple books I could recommend.
Go ahead.
One is the first one is from the 70s by Jacques Vallée, and the title is Passport to Magonia. Passport to Magonia. It's very, very, like, it seems like it's written by the creator of MUFON, which I don't know if Jacques Vallée is, but he probably should be. It's like very, very factual, like fact after fact after fact, experience after experience after experience. The next one is a much newer book by Graham Hancock with the title Supernatural. And that book is phenomenal. It's just very interesting. I mean, it's very interesting. I don't know if it's going to provide the answers the questioner needs, but it has a lot of good information on that question. That's basically the question they ask. It's all, and he doesn't stop at demons. He asks, are extraterrestrials the fairies? Are they the dwarfs? Are they all these different things? And he's got lots of good information in there. And it's a fun read too. Graham Hancock. If you've read anything by Graham Hancock, he's a very good author. He makes complex conversations accessible to the everyday man. That was it.
Thanks.
I just wanted to.
No, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just recently, so I did an interview with Reed Summers, and he and his dad, Marshall Summers, who initially started the body of work, Allies of Humanity. And I just received a package. They sent me 5 different books. I think book 1, 2, and 4 of the Allies of Humanity, and then send me 2 others that are the most recent thing from his dad. I think it's like Messages from God or something like that. And so I'm kind of curious to look at it. It's, after my main, I guess, cluster of experiences, I just kind of moved on. Just, okay, I've experienced it, and now I know what I need to know, and you just keep on living your life. And only just recently have I been getting more books and more people's telling me about these different things to look into. Now, I mean, when I have time, I will, and just to see if there's something that I'm really entirely unfamiliar with. But it kind of goes back to, like, from the bigger perspective about who we are on this planet and what we're doing here. There really is, from the spiritual point of view, it's all about the experience and learning and doing what you gotta learn, because it's like reality itself is really weird when you think about that, how everything just came to be aware, but when you're on this planet, there's, this life we live has consequences, such as pain and death and all these other things, and so a lot of us, always want to from the beginning just kind of stick to, well, it's all love and light, and everything is fine and dandy and rosy and all this other stuff. I agree, but the way I got to where I got was through extreme pain, loss, despair, just the darkest of darkest of moments, that then, got me to look into an aspect of myself and everything else that's been going on, to then be able to project myself into this light to where I can speak more positively about things instead of just looking at negative things like, oh, watch out for this, don't do that, this is bad, this is not good, definitely don't do this, and so there's a certain aspect about contact that is also dark, but from the higher perspective, there's a explanation of why it's happening. So I don't expect you to buy into it immediately, because if you're an abductee, let's say, and you've never looked into anywhere past what the experiences that you've had, all you're ever going to see is the fear, the unknown, the uncertainty of being taken. Why in the world am I being taken? What's happening? Why they're testing this? Why they're doing that? And even that, when it comes to abductions, from what I understand, and a lot of people, because I haven't, had any like direct confirmation, but through talking about different people, that program is finished actually. It's like I don't think it's going on anymore. This was a period, between pretty much, early 60s or so, all the way till like maybe late 90s, and then it just kind of concluded whatever else needed to be done. Now, I could be mistaken, and this is just me based on all my conversations with all the different connections that I had and people and contactees and abductees. When I talked to them and asked them, they kind of confirmed the same thing, that now if they're just being contacted, it's not so much about the eggs, or meaning the female eggs or male sperm or all these other things. It's more about like a different process of moving on with the contact, about being conveyed certain information that they might need in the future. Sometimes they remember it, sometimes they don't. But what I'm trying to say is that that's a dark aspect, right? That's a dark way to look at abductions, especially if you read David Jacobs' books. I mean, you're going to have nightmares for weeks and not months on end, and it will leave you very angry and kind of like, it's like, how dare they do this? But then you look at Dolores Cannon's work, where she looks at that aspect and they recall what had occurred, but then the higher self, and then in different cases, what she calls the source, comes through and then explains of what had occurred and why it was happening, to where now it alleviates the pain, alleviates the fear, and all the things that were just kind of clinching to our soul, so to say, that would never give us that rest. So it's all a question of how do you choose to look at stuff? So when Cherry Wild was talking more of the darker things, I know what she's talking about. The fact that there's still children all over the world as slaves and sex slaves, and basically being these subservient beings to these different pedophiles, is very much a reality on this world. Now, I cannot prove this to you with like bringing a document or show you and say, hey, look, here's the proof, there's the pictures and all this other stuff. But having had my out of body experiences and understanding this different aspect, that there is this darker energy being played out, it's definitely there. It's not something I often talk about, because people always flock to that fear like moths to light, and they just hold on to it. It's very difficult to pry them away from it, because once they learn of the negativity, all they, it's almost like kind of like the, being asked, don't think of the pink elephant, and all you can do is just think about a pink elephant, and so and so there's certain things and certain beings that have a different agenda. It can be explained why they're here. When you try to understand, it can also be perceived in a very fearful way, and at times it has to be talked about and discussed about. And I've thought about that, to continue like bringing guests in that can talk about that in that way. But I don't bring it up so that you can continue to fear it. I'm bringing it up so it can come out to the light, so that you can understand it, you can see it, and then move forward with hopefully a new understanding, a more constructive way, instead of just being fearful and just sticking to it for the rest of your life and not wanting to look at anything else from that moment on. Uh, the Claudine, Claudine G says, I just want to ask how to get in touch with my spirit guides without drawing negative spirits in the process. Well, it's very simple process, and that's a simple intention, right? It's a simple intention, because the energy you put out and what it is that you do is the energy that will draw what you need to draw to you. It's almost like it's kind of like this very well known but least understood concept. We always say things like, well, what you put out is what you get back. And we always just use this beautiful, flowered up term to just make us feel good. But people don't realize that we are 24/7. Every moment, every waking moment that we are conscious and living from, living on this earth, we're attracting everything to us that is the vibration of you. The things that you say you love, you attract it. There's things you say you fear, you attract it, because it's this vibration attracts a like vibration. And so try, simply, try is such a, do is the best way to, don't try, just simply do, is that you have an intention, you have an overwhelming intention to make contact or get in touch with spirit guides, whether through meditation or other means, and just simply keep that in mind, like that there's no other way that anything else could happen, like, other than the contact itself. This example I've used before to describe something else, but I think this might work. This might help explain what I'm trying to get at. So this works with what you want in general, in life. About people say, I don't know what I want to do in my life. I don't know which way I'm supposed to go. I'm not exactly sure. And you tell them, well, follow your passion. They're like, well, I don't know what my passion is, right? So I break it down in this way. So this works for that concept and also for attraction in general. I remember when I was a kid, growing up in Germany, and so being refugees who just didn't have any money at all, except for just a little bit that was given through food and whatever my mom and dad could earn. And so it wasn't something that my dad could just easily give me, even one Deutschmark. Where at that time, before they switched to euros, it was just the Deutschmark. And so they would, I would be in this complex where we lived, and I could from a distance hear this, ice cream truck. And so I knew that for one Deutschmark, I could get the certain ice cream that I really loved. And so this feeling, this, whether it was, hunger, whether it was just desire for sweet ice cream, the point was nothing else entered that reality other than, how do I get that Deutschmark? Because that's absolutely and utterly what I want. And so before, my dad would always give me a lecture about, money doesn't grow on trees, blah, 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 be more responsible, all of that. It would make me angry. And I'm like, fine, I won't ever ask you about anything again, because that's a childish way to rebel. It's like, you hurt my feelings and this is how I feel, right? And so, but when that happened, my desire was so strong that there was nothing else that I would want. Like, I would then overcome the hateful thoughts I had towards my dad, and I would just swallow my pride and then go to him first and say, can I please have a Deutschmark? When he says no, then I would go and like look all over the ground if somebody drops some money that I could collect enough to have, for that ice, to get that ice cream. And so that's what I'm talking about, to where you are that determined to be that, wanting of something. And so it's not very hard to figure out what really, really gets you going, what really is your passion, and so just simply follow that in any way that you can possibly follow. And so same thing regarding your meditation, regarding, you said just in touch, not meditation, to get in touch with your spirit guides. It's simple as that. If that's what you truly want, keep that in mind. And there's nothing else that the universe can give you contradictory, because it's this built-in rule or built-in law that vibration will only get that, get that attraction. It's simple as that. And you don't have to worry about, well, would there be something negative? Would there be, because if you're, attracting these, fearful things and you're going in with the fear, well, what are you doing? You're just constantly putting out this fear that you're saying, I don't want this. I don't want this. Well, the universe doesn't know the overall concept of meaning of what you're choosing. All it knows is what you're sending out. So since everything is sort of reflection back to you, you getting back that fear. Hence, it comes through whatever would cause you fears. So I hope that makes sense, or the explanation kind of gives you a good idea of what I mean with what intention you basically would benefit you to go into before you want to do the, what did you say, getting in touch with the spirit guides. Last thing Fab22 said, some abductee support groups are actually right now reporting increase in visitations, contact abductions been done at a faster rate, maybe rate and somewhat rushed. Yeah, Fab, I don't, like I said, based on my experiences talking to these different contactees, that's what I heard. I mean, if you heard something else, I'm sure we'll chat about it, or you can share it with me on Telegram or some other time. I'd love to hear what you know. Claudine says, the reason I asked is because I asked my spirit guide to help me clarify my path, and a voice came to me at 4 a.m., but then I was afraid to talk back. Well, I mean, that's the part about, I mean, when it comes to these alternative ways of communicating, people often talk about telepathy, and they're like, oh, it's like in this way of like, I was talked to this voice in my head, and it it was like I understood what they meant. I didn't have to speak, and there's a little romanticizing about that, and nothing wrong with actually romanticizing it, because there really isn't anything to be really afraid of. But you also have to then, respect to the level of your belief system, right? You can say you want this, right? But your vibration knows the true you. And so when you're talking about, wanting some contact and some non-corporeal entity enters into your life, whether it would be by a voice or a word or whatever you might hear, it's still a strange thing for us to really observe and accept that as okay, because we're so used to listening. We're so used to seeing somebody talk, or if we listen to radio, we know it's radio, so let's just, listen that way and just observe the information, right? But you're just going to have to make up your own mind. Like, is this something you want to do, or is this something you don't want to do? Because it's like, you can't say, I want to learn how to swim, but you constantly just kind of dip your toes in the water. It's like you either start taking the steps forward to go slowly where you need to go, ankle deep, knee deep, and so on, until you're submerged to the level that you want to, because things are going to be different. It's not just, all going to be constantly, like, you're not going to immediately translate everything in the best possible way. It's the same way like we initially learn how to speak, because when you first learn, sometimes words have double meanings. Sometimes when you talk to some people, they say one thing but mean something else. And through the years, you learn and understand like what means what. And so then now you don't take the words too personally. If something is funny, then you laugh at it. If it's something that instills anger in you, then it festers more within you for that much longer. But what I'm trying to say is that you learned to understand what language is like, and what language does in a certain way, certain tones. And same thing in the manner it's being delivered. If you hear a voice, whether even auditory, but you can't see a person, there's not supposed to be anybody there, or you feel it more coming from the center of your head, it's something that you're going to have to try to Sorry, I'm just checking if something flickered on my screen. I want to make sure that I'm still connected. It's basically, you're going to have to make up your mind and just kind of go with it, because other than doing it or not doing it, it's almost like I can't remember the saying, but it was supposed to be a funny saying. It's kind of says, do or don't do, there's no try, something along those ways. Because when you say trying, that just still means like I'm hesitant. I just want to like maybe poke at it, but I don't really want to go at it. That's what try means for most people. So that would probably be something you want to go down and figure out and work out to see what you actually want from this experience. Star Brother says it would be amazing to see you interview Elizabeth April. It would be next level. Think she's in LA. Yeah, if you under UFOhub.net, on the very bottom, there's a contact. If you just write out any links, send me any links or anything you might have, I'd appreciate it. And I'm always kind of on the lookout to reach out and see if people would be interested to come on to UFO Hub and just do an interview. So I'm always trying to work ahead. I haven't worked out who's going to be this Friday's guest. I've actually emailed. Let me check it while I'm actually with you guys here. I've emailed one particular person, hoping I might get an answer from them today. And I haven't gotten anything yet, so I'm probably going to reach out to somebody else, because if I don't, I sent this email early this morning around 7, and if I don't hear by this time from them this day, I have to move on and get to someone who can get to me quickly, because I don't want it to be Friday and then me switching the cameras on. It's like, sorry, it's just me, guys. I don't have a guest today, because usually I've always managed to have a guest come on Friday, so to where you guys can call in, talk and ask them questions about whatever subject they happen to cover on that day. Fab22 says, by the way, not a good time to ask for contact at this time for those curious. Mistakes are being done. Well, I mean, Fab, I see what you're saying, but you are the one that sets the timing and the tone for what you're doing. So I know we might disagree there. I appreciate your opinion. I was just saying, I mean, there's never a wrong time or a bad time to really, if you have an inclination, if you have a feeling, it doesn't come up really for no reason. There's always a reason why that's happening. And, there's no better time than now to go about exploring what you feel like you need to explore. Okay, so Nathan, is there anything else that you want to tell me about, chat to me about? Because I think I'm just gonna about 2 hours. I'm hoping that a lot of you would partake in the experiment that I was mentioning earlier, and hoping that you would write things down and then log in next week at Open Lines and tell me about it. It would be really cool to see what you got back, what answers you received, and
just in case people chimed in a little later, do you mind going over the experiment again?
Oh, yeah.
That didn't get on the call. Didn't get on. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So anyway, so what the experiment is about is, I was often just saying that many times when I retell a story, I always try to give you the steps moving forward to the experience of how you can get there yourself, to where then you can draw from the experience and the learnings that I have, and then basically to be able to take something back with you. Well, a lot of times I've noticed just people just listen for entertainment purposes, which there's nothing wrong with that, or they just think it's such a long process or difficult or tedious process to get to those steps. So what I was done the other day, what I was thinking about is that, well, why don't I bring some things that I've learned back here? So this still doesn't take, away from you actually having to do some homework, but something very specific that you can do to start understanding more about yourself, who you are and why you're here. And which is basically asking for a day, and if you can do it longer, for a week possibly, but for a day we'll just do, for you to simply start out from the very beginning, from the very waking moment that you open your eyes, to just notice things around you, to notice, if you usually, it's something as mundane as, usually you wake up and you're just staring up at the ceiling, and then you get all out of your bed and go do whatever you got to do, notice if it's the same. Is it something different? Were you on your right side? Were you on your left side? Were you doing things differently than what you did before, to where you were picking things up, doing things differently? Maybe, you brush your teeth and then you go take a shower. Maybe you got the shower started, then you go brush your teeth instead and do something different than what you've done before for whatever reason. The point is, you don't have to understand the reason. The simple point is, write it down in the most simplest terms. It doesn't have to be this whole book, but write them down, in your daily process, whatever conversation you might hear, whatever it may be, an ad, a person saying anything that actually got your attention, that you heard. And so write it down in a sentence or two. And so chronologically throughout your day, simply write out all these different experiences that just, you're sitting there in your car and you have your windows open and somebody, pulls out right next to you, and you just hear this music blaring with these certain lyrics, whatever it may be. Remember those, write it down. Anything that, in the office, somebody might just have this random conversation walking by your cubicle, wherever you might be. But the point is, be a conscious and willing observer of your surrounding, and understand everything that's happening to you as if it's being told to you directly, because it actually, in reality, it is, but a lot of people don't buy into that. But I'm just asking you to put yourself in that mindset that, whatever you hear, write it down, and then look at it at the end of the day, or maybe the next day, early in the morning after you're fully rested. Reread the things you have written down, and reread and look at them as a direction to you. Read it as this is a direction from that mindset to you about whatever it is that you've written down, and feel about what you felt about yesterday, what challenges, what excitement, what things you had in your life, and taking that feeling of that day, that's within you, and then read the text and apply it to what's going on, and you'll be amazed of what kind of answers and even just observations you might glean from that text. So I'm just simply, that is the essence of the experiment. Now I'm asking if you can maybe do that every day for a week, and that would be really quite a book to be written out. But it's something that, instead of, like I said, meditating, instead of other ways for you to try to achieve this level that might be challenging for some of you, I know a lot of us can do that simple task of just observe, record, and then just analyze it and look at it in the way that I mentioned. So anyway, that's the experiment. So I'm hoping that some of you could partake and then call in next week. We'll have open lines again on Telegram, and then I can just, I would love to hear what you guys have experienced, what you've written about, and I think that would be pretty cool. But at least that would be like the beginning of the process for you to start understanding of just a little bit of what this is about, who you are, why are you here, and how do these synchronicities work out in the way that they work out, And so anyway, I'm just very curious to hear from you. So anyway, that's the experiment. I hope some of you call in, and I think that's pretty much it. So does that help out? Is that a good explanation, Nathan?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good deal.
Perfect. Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay, so Fab, it says Telegram not working for me at the moment. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know. I don't have control of Telegram. But yeah, so moving forward, I would appreciate if some of you that can to, let me see if it's over here. I have this this poll that I'm hoping so far 71 people voted on. I was been trying to decide regarding sponsors and no sponsors, mainly in reference to all of you, because UFO Hub is here because of all of you, and there's something you find interesting here, and the interviews that I've done, and the things that that on a weekly basis that I can offer, and so trying to just alleviate the fact to always have to go back to my wife and asking whether or not, okay, I need this new equipment, can we afford it? Wanted to then see if I can find sponsors. And so anyway, I didn't want some of you to be basically to be turned off by it, for me having to interject on occasion if whatever sponsor is for me to talk about stuff, which I would find weird too, because it's really somebody in the comments here, I think, I don't want to point it out, but in the comments you can read yourself. They were asking like sponsors are okay if they're done in a tasteful way, and it's like, I immediately just went into this like comical, mindset that I sometimes get into. It's just the mind works in weird ways, because how do you, in a tasteful way, really introduce something if it's something totally different for what you're talking about, right? I mean, here I would be, talking about aliens, and they would come with these wonderful messages about ourselves, and they're really profound messages, but first, message from from our sponsors, to feel the clean and relieving feeling, colon cleanse, and they were like, you deserve it. And then switch over to, okay, well, the message is that alien said, we're all one. It's odd to be interjecting that way, or whether it's some kind of like drink or whatever, So anyway, there is a way that can be done at the beginning, maybe at the end. I don't know exactly how it would work out, but at the end of the day, you can still, let me see here. Yeah, okay. Let me see. I'm watching my own video back. I was like, why am I hearing double? So under each video, I have like 2 different donation ways and merchandise, which is some of the stuff you see below here. Everything else is designed or concept thought of by me, and so all of these would help support the channel. And if there's enough support to continue there, where I can just buy things without having to check with my wife, it just makes it a lot simpler. But the point is, you don't have to. We will still continue doing what we do the way I've always done for at least, coming this November, it would be 8 years. And so I just wanted to put that out there as an option, because they have some of the products here. It's just what partially would go to UFO Hub, whereas in a donation, for example, that's up here, I just opened up like a donor box that would then directly, go to UFO Hub. And so just recently, Nick and James and some others have bought some T-shirts. Actually, did help out a great deal, because I still have the box. It's unpacked. I got it today. It was a Focusrite Scarlet 2i2. Some of you can look it up. And what it is, it's like the setup I'm using now is this huge mixer with the table and all these other things, and it will allow me to just hook this mic directly to the computer. So anyway, and so things like that help out a great deal without me having to go like to my wife, like, hey, can we get this today or whatever. So anyway, so that's why I thought, if sponsors or something like that would work out, and trying to just find other solutions instead of just having to be funded from our own personal bank account. Yeah, and then I have on Teespring, there's the UFO Hub store that I have set up, and a lot of these shirts, you don't have to choose this particular color. So for example, there's this cup that I use right here. And there's just different things just recently today. I don't know why, with all the stuff going on with different like conferences and different documentaries and the TikTok videos and all these things that were out there. I know there's a lot of people that are already been into UFOs, but it's, how do you strike up a conversation? So I thought to come up with this just silly shirt that I thought it was kind of funny, but it would be a conversation starter. I'm a UFO expert. You can talk to me. And so anyway, and there's all these different colors that you don't necessarily have to go with that one. So all of that just helps and supports UFO Hub in general. So anyway, so thank you all very much. I appreciate you all for joining in. So this Friday, I will do my best to get somebody to do an interview with, usually on Thursday morning. If not, if the longer it takes for me to confirm somebody, I will have a stream link already going maybe early on Friday or late on Thursday. And so then at 7:00, you can join in and see who would be the next guest. And you can, as always, in chat, put your 3 stars down, ask a question of the guest directly. And on Telegram, because I have the Skype and Telegram talking to each other, you can ask the question, you can ask the guest directly whatever question you have and converse with them. Not for long, sometimes depending on how much time the guest gives me, I have to limit it only to a question and then move on to the next person. But yeah, so thank you all very much. I appreciate you for joining in today. Nathan, thank you again for chatting with me. I appreciate it. And so you guys have a good day. See you all on Friday and take care.